You know, we've been talking all week about that first Easter week, the cross, the miraculous resurrection, redemption. And I think those subjects just naturally dovetail into forgiveness. It's kind of like chips and queso. You know, Easter goes hand in hand with forgiveness. And I wanted to share a story that a lot of y'all are familiar with that Jesus told in Matthew's gospel about forgiveness. This is in Matthew 18, and he says, "Therefore, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. And since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold with his wife and children and all that he had, and payment to be made. So the servant fell on his knees, imploring him, 'Have patience with me, and I will pay you everything.' And out of pity or mercy for him, the master of that servant released him and forgave him the debt. But when that same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, a small debt. And seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, 'Pay what you owe.' So his fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him, 'Have patience with me, and I will pay you.' He refused and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed and went and reported it to their master." About 15 years ago, I was wrestling with forgiveness. And even though Jesus has forgiven me completely through his death and resurrection on the cross, I was really struggling with forgiving some people who had wounded me deeply. There was a lot of sexual molestation in my past, and I was just wrestling with forgiving a few of the men who had abused me, and I was raped in college. And I went to this weekend away program. It was run by some Christian counselors, and they had us do this group activity, and it really changed my life with regard to forgiveness and attaching me to this story. The counselor told some of the guys I was in a small group with who had become like brothers, and I didn't know she had told him this. She said, "I want y'all to hold on to these towels." And she gave them these rolled up white towels. And she said, "I want you to hold on to them for all you're worth. And don't let Lisa pull this towel out of your hands until I give you a signal." And then she told me, "Lisa, those towels in their hands represent your purity. They represent the innocence that men stole from you when they molested you when you were a little girl. So I want you to fight back for your innocence." And she encouraged me to speak things that I was feeling as I'm fighting these gentlemen I love, but they're representing the men who had abused me. And so it's this, very visceral experience. I'm trying to pull the towel out of their hands. And I noticed that one of them, this young guy, much younger than me, had become kind of like a little brother to me. The whole time he's holding on to this towel, representing my purity. And in a sense, he's taken on the role of abuser by hanging on to it. He's got tears streaming down his face. It was breaking his heart, even in just this little 5-minute group exercise, to take on the role of my abuser. And in that moment, I thought, Jesus took all that on for me. Jesus took all that on for me. How can I withhold forgiveness from somebody else when he took on not just my sin, but the sin of the world? How that must have broken his heart to be separated from God the Father because of the junk I've done. And I found myself in that story. I thought, I have been forgiven a lifetime of sin. How in the world can I justify withholding forgiveness from someone who's wounded me? It's not based on their deservedness or lack thereof. It's based on the fact that while I was still a sinner, Christ died for me willingly. So to me, forgiveness is really the gift he's given us. And we get to disseminate that, not because the people around us who've wounded us necessarily deserve it, but because it connects us to the cross. It connects us to all that he's forgiven us from. I've told Missy recently, my goal is to be a woman who forgives very, very quickly and takes offense very, very slowly.
it makes me think about Jesus on the cross. And, you know, the first words of Jesus on the cross was a petition for their forgiveness. And he says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do.
Right.
And what struck me about that is in that moment that Jesus, even though being on the cross and taking on their sins, he was also in their shoes. And he recognized these people are ignorant, not only of who I am, but who they truly are.
Yeah.
And, you know, whenever we see, you know, just when people move in a place that is just of injustice, when people move from a place that is such an assault even to our identity, it's actually, forgiveness now becomes the strength of sight. That I'm seeing clearly in this moment that you don't even know who you are, and you clearly do not know who I truly am. And so even as I'm forgiving you because I am connected to the cross, but I am also forgiving you because you have also lost your way.
Yeah.
Right.
Because in the truth of who we are, in the image, being created in the image of God, that does not speak of his image, that does not speak of his likeness
Right.
or his identity. And so when I forgive, it's a strength from my
Right.
perspective to see you in truth. You might think that you're doing this out of your pride or your whatever it is that you know, when there is any assault on the soul from another individual, there is an ignorance, there is a deep level of ignorance connected to your actions. And so, I mean, I'm so grateful that, you know, who you are today, Lisa. I love you so much. I call you Mama Lise.
I'll take it.
You
Maybe
know,
I'd love to have you as a daughter.
And it's just so beautiful. And to me, that just shows the strength of not only your relationship with the Lord, but also the strength of you seeing that you don't know any better. You
Right.
really are ignorant to who I truly am and even who you are in the Lord.
And I think you implied this, Stephanie, much better than I did. To forgive does not mean you stay in a position of being abused.
Right.
To forgive someone doesn't mean you stay in the position of victim. To forgive is also
Right.
having the wisdom to step out of the ring so you don't get hit again.
Right.
So I think, you know, our world says you forgive and you forget. That's actually not biblically defensible.
Right.
God gives us the gift of forgiveness, but he also gives us wisdom to go, I'm going to remove myself from someone who doesn't know they bear God's image and is treating me callously or abusively. And so I think with forgiveness, that has to be wielded with a lot of wisdom.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe today and you'll never miss a new upload.
And don't forget to check out our Better Together shop. Thanks for being a part of our community.